Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all-natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, embodied coach, Amazon bestselling published author and publisher, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade your self and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the founders of Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week to have intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. And we also like to invite special guests who are experts in the field. And so we're glad you're here.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, listening, viewing, however you like to participate. We're grateful that you're here for episode 170.
170, talking about physical wellness today.
So important, and we were just talking earlier, and we'll go into it a little bit more, but talking about body memories, it is September 11th. So again, like I was pointing to, in America, even around the world, like if you watched it or you heard about it, depending on how you felt, you might, have a body memory. I was thinking about it, like maybe that's the day I decided. I think I was like, when did we say it was? 2001?
It was 23 years ago, yeah.
I thought, when I think about 9/11, I thought I was 5. If it happened in 2001, I was what, 7? And I remember coming home from school, and me and my dad were watching it on TV. And maybe that's why I don't watch the news all the time. Like, wow, this feels horrible, But I remember, and I'm so grateful for the resources that we have to, one, know about it, know that sometimes that stuff is in our bodies, and that's why emotionally we are where we are, mentally we might be where we are. But there's also things we can do to take care of ourselves, to be intentional, and to check in with our community.
Yeah. Last night, I was watching the debate. Our listeners
Yes.
will not be shocked, right?
Right.
But it was fascinating even before the debate in my class, in my Tuesday morning class that I teach with Sheila in Radical Self and Community Care. This very subject was coming up about body memories. Because people who are really engaged in politics, like definitely had body memories of the last debate or the last election or the one before. And
Yes.
so it's very interesting because a couple of my clients and some of my folks in class were talking about how anxious they were, right? So we talked about ways in physical wellness that we can release some of that anxiety. Part of what it was some of them were texting me last night. We were cracking each other up, right? I'm like, I'll be live texting. Come on, let's do it.
Yes.
Our bodies really do, like,
Yeah.
they store stuff, right? And especially when there's big things around it. So yes, to the being 9/11 today, I have incredible body memories. I'll wait and tell that story when our guest comes up. But yeah, yes to taking some deep breaths and sighing and shaking and whatever we need to do on big days. It's one of the first questions I often ask my clients when they're not quite sure what's wrong. Like, we check in around the date or around what is, anything happened around here? Because I think I've talked about it on the air before, but, when I worked in foster care and adoption many, many years ago, we had some kids that came into care because of severe abuse when they were nonverbal. They were little. But every year at the same time, they freaked out and blew up their placements. And they had files, huge, thick files. And it took it took a social worker coming in and putting it together that it was always the same. And that was the day they came into care. Their bodies remembered, like they were so tiny. They didn't remember, but their bodies remembered.
I wonder what day I went into foster care. I have no idea. Yeah. But thankfully I came out, right? My dad did not. He got adopted and went through the system.
Yeah. And it's a big impact. It would be interesting to look at your file, right? And to see, just to know. I mean, I think about it with folks who have suffered grief and loss and death and, mostly I mean, that is a huge grief and loss, like, when you go into foster care. And the
Absolutely.
same I think our bodies really store those memories, right?
Mhm.
So,
And that's why I'm excited about our conversation because just like a deep breath, just like things that we let go of and sit down, we don't have to carry it forever and ever and on to the next generation, right? So yes, it's there. Yes, we know what 9/11 is. We know what these different days are. But my goal through our work and the resources that we support is to form a better relationship with those things. Like, yes, this is still part of my story. It's part of the artwork I have the opportunity to make in my life. But each year it doesn't have to be debilitating and shut the whole world down type of situation.
right? That makes me think of Sheila K. Collins' work, which we've been bringing her up a lot lately because I think there's so
And a
much
lot of
grief and
grief.
loss in the world, right? But her new
Yes.
book about the art of grieving and
Mhm.
how it's a spiral and it comes around, and every time it comes back around, you're at a different place,
Mhm.
right? When I used to work with groups, doing that made me think of this thing I would say, and I don't know if I've ever done it on air before, but what I would say is when a major traumatic event happens and you put your hand right up in front of your face, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
all you can see is that event. It's
Yeah,
so present. It's so whatever it is,
it
whatever kind of
is.
trauma it is, it's right
Mhm.
there. And
Mhm.
with a little time and a little support and a little resources, it
Mhm.
comes out further. So
Yeah.
I'm holding my hand about, midway arm's length. And it's
Yes.
still a big part of the filter that I see the world through, right?
Mhm.
It can
Mhm.
block my vision some days, the whole vision, and some days it's not even in my vision. And then more time, more resources, more support, and now I'm holding my hand out the whole length and it orbits, it kind of spirals like Sheila talks about. So some
Mhm.
days I don't even see it. I
Mhm.
don't even think about it. And then some days it's cruising right in front of my vision, like
Yeah.
today on an anniversary day, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That makes perfect
Well,
sense.
how about we do the dimensional definition
Yes.
and get our guest up here
Let's
and
do
dive
it.
into this conversation. Does that
I'm
work?
excited. Yes.
All right, y'all. Today, we are talking about physical wellness. Physical wellness is the ability to maintain a quality of life that allows you to thrive in your daily activities without undue fatigue or physical stress. Physical wellness recognizes that our daily choices, habits, and behaviors have an impact on our overall health, well being, and quality of life. Like my
Yes.
choice to be sitting in this chair too long today.
Mhm. 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 What comes up for you around that?
Oh, I know better. Like, sometimes, we have to hyper focus. Like,
Yeah.
we're working on business taxes and
Mhm.
there's time. We got a deadline. It's time to do it. Um, but I got up a couple of times and walked around, but usually when my body is fussing at me like that, I'd just be done, right?
Mhm.
And there's sometimes you can't be done. You're like,
Mhm.
"Oh," and I've been in the chair a lot because I've been doing a lot of tasks associated with it, since this weekend. So, just a reminder to stretch,
Mhm.
to, you know, this morning I usually would have gone for a walk first, but I'm doing it afterwards because
Yeah.
I was trying to be done in time
Yeah. Yes. I
for our
appreciate you.
meeting.
Yes.
So, that's what I think about. I think, sometimes we have our plans and life happens and we have to shift it a little bit. But
Every day, right?
yeah. What about you? When you think about physical wellness, what do you think about?
Mm. I've been thinking about our LinkedIn community, right? And
Mhm,
sharing the resources, sharing what I'm working on after I post. I want to start doing that more. And so
mhm,
for physical wellness and posting this week, I've been thinking about where I am. And for me, what I've been thinking about is actively working in the businesses, right? I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos on an array of different topics. And yesterday I was listening to this really good podcast and it was talking about hiring effectively, right? And how some people, apparently the average is they're spending 3 to 4 hours on emails, right? That's a lot of time. We have
A lot
not
of
gotten
time.
there, right? We have not gotten there in Women Connected in Wisdom or Connected in Wisdom Press. I'm not trying to get there, right? But I'm thinking, right, if I have 3.5 businesses right now and the half is being an independent agent, right? Being an independent broker, that's not officially set up, but that's 4 businesses to check. And that's just emails, right?
Mhm.
No wonder I feel like there's a lot to do in all these things, and so for me, the physical wellness that I've been thinking about is building the teams, building the systems and the businesses. So I, as a manifester in human design, who's not supposed to be doing all these little tasks, can start, delegating and helping people around the world with their goals and continuing to scale our businesses.
So you can be not sitting at the computer.
And I mean, I'll still sit at the computer. I look forward to doing the podcast. And of course, you have to check in on everything, but I won't be the person doing the graphics, doing the marketing, doing the accounting,
Right.
doing all of the things in all of the places. And that affects my physical capacity. So that's what I've been thinking about.
Right?
Yeah.
Fatigue and your stress for sure. Well,
Yeah.
you ready to give our guest a bio and get her
Yes.
up on the stage?
Let's do it.
Do
Okay,
it.
y'all. Today we are talking to Miss Annie McDonnell. And Annie McDonnell is an acupuncturist, sound healing practitioner, and grief guide who teaches self-care practices to nurture tender hearts and cultivate resilience through the power of gentleness. Help us welcome to the stage Annie McDonnell. Hi, Annie.
It's so good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Mhm.
Well, you were saying before the show, especially, and we want to give you a little time to talk about this, like
Yes.
as a New Yorker, because that's where you're coming in from, how big of an day this impact has on you and your community.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely I think the greatest thing that you can do in grief is to remember and to honor the memories and honor the experience, the sacredness of the lives that were lost, the sacredness of the children who've now grown up for 23 years without the parents that they lost. Our culture wants grief to be a very finite, controllable thing. And it just doesn't work that way. It definitely is a spiral, as you were talking about. But I think it does help I like to give people the image of, if you're playing in a pool or at the beach and you have a beach ball and if you've ever tried to like keep it underwater,
Yes.
you know how amazingly difficult it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hold underwater. And I feel like our emotions are like a lot like that. It takes a lot of energy to hold down emotions that just want to flow and be free to be what they are, to inform us of what's important to us. So I think, again, like as you were talking about body awareness, just bringing awareness to how does your body feel. If you're not consciously aware of the calendar page turning, maybe you did wake up with this sense of dread when you saw the blue September sky that was a mirror image of that impactful moment. So yeah, I appreciate being able to kind of be a witness to the day. Because I think it does matter to, no one ever dies fully while they're remembered.
I love that. Can you speak more to what you mean when you say the blue September sky? Are you talking about there were 2 towers and they came down, right? And now it's the blue sky where there used to be structures. Is that what you're mentioning? What do you mean?
To me, it was just the like strange disconnect. It, I remember getting on the train to go into work that morning, and it was, this weather where it's still a little bit of summer, but the mornings were getting cooler. The air is a little crisp, and it was just this like cloudless, crystal clear, beautiful blue sky. And then all of a sudden there were ashes in flames and smoke and this horrible stench of death. And it was just such a strange, you see something in a movie or on TV, but when you experience something so disorienting in real life, you notice strange things.
Yes.
And because things just seem so incongruent. So there was just a very quality to that sky that was just like, how can the day be so beautiful when something so tragic and horrifying is going on? So that's one of the, for some people, it might be a smell that triggers something. For other people, it might be a sound.
Right. And for you, it was the sky. That makes sense. I was thinking about the sky days after and remembering the event and the body memories, but you're talking about in the morning on the way there, beautiful sky, beautiful temperature, and then this horrific thing happens. That makes sense. So today we're talking about connecting our mind, body, and spirit through the alchemy of acupuncture. Can you share with our listeners how you started using acupuncture and what you do now to help your clients?
Well, yeah, it's funny that we're speaking today because the origin story of my experience with acupuncture, I knew vaguely of it. I grew up being interested in natural healing. But I worked not probably like 2 or 3 miles from ground zero at the time. So in the week after that area was closed, I couldn't go to work. But then once the office had reopened, for months afterwards in New York City, the air quality was horrible. And if you know the kind of like the burning plastic smell, that smell lingered in the air for a few months afterwards. And I had acupuncture. I mean, I had asthma, but my asthma had always been pretty mild. In the months after 9/11, my asthma it was scary to me a couple of times, where it was getting seriously worse. I was having trouble breathing and I didn't want to go on. I like to keep medications as minimal as possible, do herbs, do nutrition, do anything to avoid being on these serious pharmaceuticals. For the roof. So I didn't want to go on a steroid medication to get my asthma under control. So luckily I happened to know someone who knew an acupuncturist in my area to recommend. So I was like, well, let me try this. People don't realize because they have an instinctual fear of needles, but acupuncture is like one of the safest things that you can do. The most common side effect is that you might get a tiny bruise. But other than that, it's remarkably painless a lot of the time. And really the worst thing that could happen is like you don't notice an impact right away because it is a slow, gentle medicine. So I figured, let me try this. And I went for, the first week I felt a difference, but I went for, I think 6 or 8 weeks in a row. And what was stunning to me, it made a huge improvement. I didn't need to go on any medication. But what I noticed too was that it helped me emotionally. And I hadn't like put a name to the shock and the grief that I was carrying from, living through 9/11 very up close. And seeing, for months afterwards, there were missing posters everywhere in New York City. It wasn't just like one day and then everything went back to normal.
Right.
So, so part of what really sparked my greater interest in learning more about acupuncture was that it's not just physical. It actually does help emotionally and spiritually if you're willing to, look beyond the skeptical realm of like, we're just mind and body. I think we are mind, body, spirit. But so that's one of the things I love to share with people is that, if you've heard about acupuncture in the US, you may think like, oh, back pain.
Right.
And that's like what, insurance companies may cover it for limited things like nausea and back pain and, whatever other insurance codes they might have.
Right.
But it really is a full system of looking at a human being as an ecosystem where everything is connected to everything else. You're never treating like just the lungs. You're treating the person in front of you. And as you know, emotions are not abstract. If you think about when you're feeling anxious, you're feeling butterflies in your stomach, or you have to run to the bathroom, or maybe you get a tension headache. It's not like you can just verbalize, oh, I'm feeling this. And it's this, it like we're embodied beings. And the same thing too, of where maybe you can't put a name to how you're feeling. There's such a muddle of emotions in grief that, at one time you could be feeling guilt, anger, sadness, loneliness, despair, all, mixed up together. And rather than trying to tease that apart analytically, emotions want to be felt, not analyzed and critiqued. So just think of the power of someone wrapping you in a hug and maybe just like, gently rubbing your arm. That's telling your body it's safe. You're connected to other people. You are cared for. Your emotions are acknowledged and honored. And that bodily information then is a feedback loop to your emotion and to your mind. So I think, Western culture often tries to we live so up in our heads. And it really serves us well to remember that we have bodies, and maybe the best way into a problem is through our bodies and not our minds.
Beautiful.
I love that, Annie. I was just having this conversation with a client this morning about we have a saying in Interplay that is never underestimate the body's need for reassurance.
Yes.
And it's what it made me think about when you said that about soothing, right? About soothing our bodies or wrapping ourselves in a warm hug or a warm blanket or, physical contact. And I'm a huge fan of acupuncture. It is, I think since the last time I saw you, I had an episode of Bell's palsy in, when was it? It was at the end of June, 1st of July. And I hadn't had one in 15 or 16 years, and they think it was brought on by a tick bite, but, acupuncture is definitely one of the things I go to for the whole body, like, to treat. I do chiropractic and acupuncture kinda hand in hand with each other, or bone and bone, foot and foot. What would you say with that too?
Yeah. Body and body. Right? Mind, body, spirit. Right.
They're dance partners.
Yeah.
They coordinate, they go alongside with each other very beautifully. But, I always know when I get off the acupuncturist table, I have just such a deep sense of relaxation. Like that, and I know you're also a sound therapist, right? That's the other place that I experienced that deep of relaxation. The first time I ever had sound therapy, I was like, "What magic just happened here?"
Yeah, it's amazing. Sound especially is kind of like a portal where it just helps you shift effortlessly into a different mental state. It definitely does affect your brain waves, so you can often go into kind of like a floating dreamlike state. And it's just so, again, there's people put so much force and effort into trying to meditate perfectly and empty their mind. It's like, no, actually there's a simpler way. and it doesn't have to be, I love working with singing bowls and chimes and bells and string instruments and whatever else I can, whatever toys I can get my hand on. But actually, well, I'll say two of the greatest natural sound medicines. One is just go to a park, lie in the grass, and just listen to what's going on around you, whether that's bird song. There's now I forget that there's a Japanese word for the name of wind tree.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, the Japanese have a concept of forest bathing, but there's an actual word, I think it's called like susurration or something like that. That's the word for the sound that the wind makes through tree branches and leaves. So just, those sounds, again, evolutionarily, we evolved to know, like, birds basically only sing when there are no predators around, when a storm isn't coming. They may be giving alarm cries and making some noise when something's about to happen, but when they're just singing, that's their mating call. That's their like, hey, I brought home dinner to the kids. And since we all are connected to each other evolutionarily, human beings, our nervous systems are taking cues from everything going on around us. So something as simple as, and if you can't get out to a park, go on YouTube and find a video of birdsong, and also like the sound of a stream, the sound of running water, again, meant that you were safe because you had clean water nearby, which meant there was likely a food source nearby, a fruit tree or deer that you'd be hunting. So, as modern beings, we forget that it really can be this simple and primal, but it really can be that simple that, just turn off your phone and turn off the incessant beeps and notifications and tune into, these subtle cues that actually in this moment, even if it's the sound of your own breathing, like in this moment, whatever else is going on in the world and whatever craziness I'm worried about, in this specific moment, I'm actually safe. I'm okay. I can kind of restore my battery to deal with whatever I have to deal with next. But if you take a couple moments to intentionally soak in these soothing and safe cues, it can really make a big difference. And then the other free natural sound healing that's amazing is our own voices. I'm happy to give someone a personal sound bath and just let them zone out, and whatever comes up or, releases will happen. But you can also, take charge for yourself and, sing your favorite song. If you're feeling your energy dipping, is there a song that always makes you happy and gets you dancing? Or if you're feeling really tightly wound and you need to cry, but for whatever reason you just have this block, then pick a really sad song and let the music work its magic. Music is one of the best ways to move emotion, and move with emotion rather than against emotion. And even just, if you don't like singing or you can't, maybe other people are around and you don't feel comfortable verbalizing anything, if you can quietly hum to yourself. Humming is sound vibration that you can direct inward, and that signals your nervous system. You've probably heard of the vagus nerve, which is one of the master switches to the nervous system to switch from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic rest and digest. So humming, the sound vibration, the vagus nerve comes down through the throat. So it's stimulating the vagus nerve in a positive way. And it's also one of these timeless cues to your body's ancient wisdom about oh, gee, if we were being chased by a tiger, we wouldn't be humming. So Something has to be okay and going right. And same thing too, where like you can just
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Sheila Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Sheila Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. You know, the story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yes, esthetician tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, you know, I work with individual coaching clients, I work in community classes, and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. You know, especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
And same thing too, where like you can just you can do like an or you can hum a specific song that will work with your mood and trying to help shift things.
I love that, Annie. I hum a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hum, Shannon?
I do. It reminds me, you saying that reminds me of this time I was a kitchen manager on the Topgolf kitchen line, right? And there was a lot going on, people on different sides of the line doing different things. And I was training and just humming, and this new hire was beside me and he was like, what are you doing? Are you trying to drown them out? And I said, no, I'm centering myself.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I stay centered, and calm so I can manage everything effectively from a certain place. So yeah, Christine, do you have a song that you like to hum? Do you hum different things at different times?
I hum all different kind of things. I was kind of chuckling because I remember when I was working in Houston, Texas with the Homes of St. Mark, and we were in a big corporate building, and so you had to go down the hall for the restrooms, right? And I hum so much I don't even realize I'm doing it because it is a self-soothe. I'm sometimes I use it with my ADD brain to like focus me. And I was humming, and I remember my boss at the time going, "Hey, Christine," and I was like, "What?" She's like, "Oh, I always know it's you because I hear your humming wherever we go."
Mhm.
And then the reason I knew I sometimes do it when I'm nervous to calm myself is right before a board meeting. She's like, I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're humming." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." So she was the one that taught me to even pay attention to when I'm humming. One of the best bosses I ever had, Celeste Ross, call her name
Yeah,
because
shout out to
she's
Celeste.
definitely one of my mentors. But yeah, I think about I wanna circle back around, Annie, to when you were talking about sound therapy and, singing bowls, because I I used to have such a hard time meditating. My brain is not one that can usually just sit down and be quiet. And I remember the first singing bowl session I ever had, like, I was gone. Like it relaxed me so much. So will you tell folks a little bit more about that if they've never heard of singing bowls or about
Mhm.
sound therapy and just give our folks a little bit about that because we haven't really talked much about it on the show, have we, Shannon?
No, we haven't. Not a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you can get very technical, but and you can approach it from a lot of different angles. Some people come at it as musicians and get interested in the more healing properties of sound. Like you met at from a physical healer perspective, as someone who appreciated music, but I'm not a musician. But sound baths aren't really like concerts. It's not about a perfect melody and creating harmony. They can sound very beautiful, but it's really about creating. It's like bathing you in sound waves that, again, like we actually have receptors to pick up sound vibration in every cell of our body. It's not, we don't just hear through our ears. We actually hear through our skin. And sound is really what is commonly thought of as the first sense that develops. When you're in the womb, think of your hearing and feeling the sound vibration of your mother's heartbeat. And even for newborn infants, a heartbeat sound, or even for puppies too. I think there's like a device that, like, for puppies being separated from their mother, there's like a little heartbeat sound that you can put under a blanket. So that's like the most just kind of like sets the tune for what unfolds is that it's really the vibration that takes form. And in Chinese medicine, each different organ system actually has a sound vibration associated with it. There's a form of Qigong that I do that's called 6 healing sounds. And the idea is that, as individual humans, we all have kind of our own energetic vibration. But even within our bodies, it's like an orchestra where all the different systems of our body are different instruments, sounding different, playing different notes, but hopefully in harmony with each other. And you can look at disease as, something, maybe the flutes get out of tune or something gets out of rhythm and out of step with the rest. And then that just starts throwing the whole song off. So the idea of a sound bath is using sound in this way to create a sense of balance and harmony and serenity. There can be sound baths too that use sound in a more almost shamanistic way to try and clear some heavy energy or I don't want to say negative energy. So I guess like heavy energy. Or maybe charged energy. So, I've been to some great sound baths where, and again, this is very primal. If you think about tens of thousands of years ago, people around a campfire with improvised drums coming into rhythm and harmony, you kind of go into a natural trance state. And you also attune to what's around you. So if anyone's like tuned instruments, like a tuning fork, the tuning forks kind of come into resonance with each other. So in a sound bath, one of the things I'm trying to do is to create this sense of resonance and harmony that invites anything in disharmony to remember a healthier rhythm and to kind of like iron out some of the wrinkles that may have or like unwind some of the knots that may have gotten tied up. So it's there are many different things going on. And if you get interested too, people have different theories about different frequencies. But basically what a singing bowl is, it's the way it's created and the different alloys of metals that they're used. You can get like a singing bowl in, the note of F or A or, any of the specific notes, but it has what are called overtones. So the way it vibrates, it just creates this incredibly rich sound where you're hearing these harmonics that's greater than just like a flat, like a note here. You're hearing this whole spectrum of vibration, and the way it kind of like, sounds loud and then like slowly dies out. And then I love when I'm able to work in person with people and I put a singing bowl on their abdomen or on their chest. It's amazing when you can actually feel the sound vibration traveling through your whole body. And, it's like great for menstrual cramps, muscle knots. It's just the power of sound. Sound travels faster. I think it's 4 times faster through water than air. And what are humans? But like 75% water.
Right.
And our bones are highly conductive. So we are really, we are so primed to soak up the sound. And it's kind of, when I work with people too, I use weighted tuning forks on acupuncture points. So in my mind, I have kind of like a treatment and a logic of like, well, I'm going to use this point for this and that point for that. But really, it's the sound kind of travels where it needs to go. And the sound is smarter than I am or the person receiving it. It is just this, it's a much more like fun and effortless way to get to this meditative state than, again, like trying to force your mind to be empty. It also gives people something to focus on too. It's like some people fall asleep too, but if you're trying to clear your mind rather than clearing your mind or getting hung up on the monkey mind thoughts, listen to that note and listen to that note. And it really does, music affects the entire brain rather than like one distinct portion. So it helps the brain. It gives the brain something to focus on and do if it needs something to focus on and do. And meanwhile, the sound waves are also creating this whole environment that is telling the nervous system, hey, your breathing can slow. Your breathing can slow down into the rhythm of these notes. You can, imagine that you're by a river stream or you're, it's amazing. Like sometimes, I'll be like looking at someone and I can tell their breathing has changed, or I may start to think like, oh, I think they're asleep now. And then when they get off the table, some of the images that have come up for people, I had once I had someone I worked with who actually like had a dialogue with her inner child during a sound bath. And, neither of us intended that, but the sound creates these opportunities for whatever needs to arise in a safe, calm environment.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you mentioned the flutes. Shout out to the flutes. I love how you said the body's like an orchestra. I always wanted to be an orchestra, Annie. And the school that I went to didn't have one. So I had the opportunity to play flute for 7 years. And I love that. I love that. So when you were mentioning the Chinese medicine and the different notes that they say are assigned to the organs, are there specific notes, or is everybody's body different notes in different places?
In the Chinese Qigong is, it's different from yoga, but it's a form of Chinese medicine that is like, gentle stretching and breathing exercise, and it's kind of meditative movement. And also intention is very important. So they're all different kinds of Qigong. One of them is the sound healing Qigong called the 6 healing sounds. And because there's no set answer for anything, especially anything that's lasted for thousands of years, like Qigong. Depending on who your teacher is or what specific school, the sounds can be slightly different. But basically, it's so like one commonly there's an organ system that's the lungs, but it's not just the physical lungs. It's kind of the think of the big picture lungs and the intelligence of the lungs, breathing in, breathing out, but also the emotion heavily associated with the lungs in Chinese medicine is grief and sadness. And if you think of when you're grieving, how you are like protecting your chest and you just feel like this weight on your chest and it's hard to breathe, or you may be racked with sobs. So if you're working with the lung system and that specific emotion, the sound that I learned in my Qigong was like the air going out of a tire. So that specific sound on an energetic vibrational level particularly resonates with the lungs and the energy of grief and sadness. And when I lead people through guided Qigong practices, sometimes it's depending if they're more visual too, I'll say they can imagine a snake shedding its skin as you say, because part of what the lungs challenge is to let go, because you can't take in new oxygen if you don't let out the breath. If you're holding your breath, you can't live. So and if you think of that from a greater grief and loss perspective, you have to come into a relationship with what you've lost, what you have to let go, but what can continue to inspire you about a person you've lost, or a relationship you've lost, or a situation. So if you work on an energetic level to kind of, process these emotions in a gentle way, the sound from a Qigong's perspective is going straight to your lungs and helping support the lungs. One of the other things it's doing is that it's making your exhale naturally longer than your inhale, which again is a signal to the vagus nerve that it's safe to relax. So you're helping sway, like you really can't feel better if you're stuck in fight or flight, or you don't freeze. Some people are in fight and flight so long that then they get stuck in a freeze state.
Yes.
So ways to kind of, again, like you can't think your way out of that. You can't control your way out of that. Whatever you can do, breath by breath, movement by movement, to, hug your nervous system, feed energy, nourish your nervous system. Because grief and trauma and shock and loss, it's too big to deal with all at once. So, like as you were talking about the spiral, or I love the image of holding your hand close.
Yeah.
It really is. It has to be step by step. So whatever you can do, step by step, breath by breath, to help your nervous system gently at its own pace come out of freeze, feel safe to take a step out of freeze towards rest and digest, towards processing, another big wave of emotion that feels overwhelming. There are so many little tools that it sound deceptively simple, and it sounds like, you want like that's it.
Just try it.
Yeah, just try it, and give it time also. There's if there were a magic bullet, then someone would be a billionaire by now from selling the magic bullet cure to grief and sadness and trauma. But it is as simple as taking kind of maternal or paternal nurturing energy and directing it towards yourself.
Yes.
And giving yourself the grace to heal at your own pace. So these depending on, the person, if they're more visual, if they're sound oriented, you can definitely play as you're playing with your breath and with sounds and seeing how you feel. And there are also some movements that can go along with these Qigong sounds. You can kind of bring your whole body into the experience, and then you can engage your imaginative mind, your playful mind into, well, if this grief were a snake coiled up in my chest, let me, give it space to express itself. Let me give it space to unwind its tail and, breathe out this heaviness and then breathe in golden light or silver light or, breathe out a snake, breathe in a butterfly. There's so many, there's endless, infinite ways to healing, depending on the person and also depending on the day. I always like to give people a broad toolkit because, one of the things that's very disorienting about acute grief is that stuff that used to work for you falls flat because you don't feel like yourself. And it can be so overwhelming that, or, emotionally activating. A movie that used to give you comfort now reminds you too strongly of what you've lost. Or so you can feel even more, or, you're even like, the person you always called to lean on in tough situations is the very person that you lost. So you can feel really adrift. So, it really is the time and place for a broad, wide toolkit to just, maybe give something a rest and try something new. And maybe it will make you feel ridiculous, but maybe you'll feel so ridiculous that it'll make you laugh and give you like a little spark of joy and curiosity.
Yeah, that's funny. That is the spell on Harry Potter, isn't it? The ridiculous, or that's what you say with when the fear pops up, right?
Right.
Before we go to the wisdom in action and what we're all personally doing this week, I want to ask a question about what you said earlier about your asthma. Talking about lungs and breath reminded me, and I love you being intentional about. I love you being intentional about not trying to take medicine. And you said there were herbs, right? I know that this is not necessarily like specifically about asthma, but I know a lot of our listeners probably deal with or know somebody who deals with asthma. What are the herbs and things that you would go to before you found acupuncture that helped you stay off the medication you were intentional about not taking?
Well, herbs are a tricky thing. And it's hard for me to say in this general context because, it's my philosophy is that if an herb is more on the food spectrum, it's generally safe. Like that's a good entry point. So I like recommending teas to people because that's kind of like literally the most diluted form, rather than taking a tincture or, there are actually herbs you can even smoke for acupuncture and for asthma, even though that will sound strange and counterintuitive. But herbs are so, there can be side effects, there can be allergies, and there can also be, unfortunately, a lot of people are taking pharmaceuticals that then can interact in lots of different ways with herbs. So I don't want to give any blanket recommendations. But I would encourage people to, if they're interested in staying off medication, to, maybe look into, there are good brand. There's like a great brand called Organic India that has Tulsi Tea, And so Tulsi is an Ayurvedic herb originally. It's called holy basil also. Holy because it was so revered in traditional Indian medicine and culture. And Tulsi is a great adaptogenic herb, meaning that it helps you adapt to kind of whatever is going on. It helps your stress response in a lot of different ways. So this Organic India brand has many different blends, and one of them is a respiratory blend with several different respiratory herbs. So it's I'd love to give like a herbs are great, but
Right.
because they also are powerful.
That makes sense.
I can't give like a one size fits all recommendation, but
And
I'd like people, I thank you for bringing it up because there
yes.
are alternatives. You just won't see them. There's no like ad campaign for them because no one has a patent to them.
Right.
But people
And
can try things.
yes, and that's why we love tailored resources here. We know that everybody is different. We have to listen to our bodies, like you said, be mindful of medications and the mixture of things. So that's why you are our expert guest, because I love even the list of considerations to have somebody walk through is important. And we know that we don't ever want to give them something that they're trying to use to help and then it actually ends up harming or causing something else. So the answer was beautiful and it makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking.
Yes. So every week we talk about what we're doing, right? We talked about how you help your clients. What are you personally doing for your physical wellness this week to be intentional?
I am going for lots of long walks with my dog. He's just off camera here. And I really enjoy the transitional seasons. Spring and fall are my favorite. So I have recently started up, I was raised Catholic. I wouldn't call myself a practicing Catholic anymore, but I have, over the past several weeks, taken up the rosary. There's a great book called The Way of the Rose by an ecofeminist who, again, is married to a former Buddhist monk. She was a former Catholic. So they're kind of like spiritual, but not religious. And they have different adapted prayers for people who may not want to say the traditional Catholic prayers. And it's a really interesting book too, of just like anthropologically how every culture had kind of like a practice with beads. Because again, it is this, you're using your body
Right.
to go into this really relaxing, soothing trance state as you say a mantra or a prayer or a devotion of some sort that appeals to you. So lately, as I walk my dog, I've been doing an internal rosary as I look for the first leaves to change color, enjoy the last of the summer blossoms, and I'm really trying to just notice because everything goes by so quickly. And I'm looking at the flowers now, realizing that like these are going to be completely dead from the cold weather in like another 2 weeks. So let me kind of really soak it in and appreciate it. So that's been my kind of walking meditation.
Beautiful. Christine, what about you? Physical wellness and your wisdom and
I'm going to take some of the words that Annie said earlier, and I'm going to hashtag give myself grace. So yeah, and I love Tulsi teas, and I don't know that I have any in my cabinet right now, so that was a really good reminder to get some. So I love that.
It's one of the herbal teas that actually does taste pretty good on its own.
Right.
So
It really does.
little there's like no bitterness. They have a beautiful one too. That's a rose petal Tulsi. That's very uplifting to the spirit. That's a good one for grief too. It's like goes straight to your heart.
Love that. What about you, Shannon?
Tulsi. Let's see. I have a couple of hashtags written down. I think I'm going to keep this one. The hashtag, I'll tell you the two that I had, right? Hashtag listen to the bird song because I love where I live. Technically, I live in a park, right? And throughout COVID, we had the space to slow down and always go outside almost every day. And I would say good morning to the birdies every day, right? And I've kind of lost the rhythm of doing that. But this past week, the last few days, I've taken the time to just sit outside and be. My other hashtag was hashtag listen to the wind. This past weekend, I just went to Piedmont. I had missed one of my friends from college, her birthday. I missed it, and I was out at a market for Sheila, my shea butter company on the Beltline, right? So I said, let's make it up. I want to make sure that I celebrate you. And Jessica was sharing with me how she loves the wind. This is her favorite part of nature, So like you were saying, Annie, I love watching the leaves fall, watching them change color, enjoying the season. This is my favorite temperature, 72 degrees is like perfect for the band nerd that went to every football game. So I'm gonna enjoy the birds this season. Yeah. Yeah. So, Annie, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, everything you do, and again, 9/11 and how you got here and how you decided to take that and help other people. Can you let our listeners and our viewers know how to find you if they're interested in staying connected and enjoying some of your services?
Yes, my website is joyalchemyhealing.com. I think thank you for posting that. I think there'll be links as well.
Yeah.
On Instagram, I am at Acupuncture Annie. Those are my two main ways to find me. I'm also on Facebook on Joy Alchemy Acupuncture. And if you come to my website or go to Instagram, there's a link in bio. I have a free resource that I'd love any of your listeners to download if they feel called to. That's about anticipatory grief, which is basically that, if you're caretaking a senior parent or a senior pet, I'm a big animal lover. They're part of the family, and this resource I created is definitely geared as well for pet parents with senior animals. And watching someone you love decline slowly or quickly can be a really painful process, and it's not often given much acknowledgement in open society, but you do start grieving way before someone dies, and you can start caring for your grief. It can be a more beautiful experience too when you feel emotionally regulated enough to have what can be hard conversations, but can turn into very beautiful, meaningful conversations. So my free guide on making the most of now I'm never getting the whole long title, making the most of the time that's left when loss is on the horizon.
Yeah. I got it for you if you want me to say it. You want me to read
Sure.
it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's making the most of precious time when losing a loved one is on the horizon.
Yeah, so it's 10 practical tips of, there's some suggestions on even like, if you need to get organized, like financial paperwork, all the like practical details that can seem overwhelming. And then also, there's actually a tip on herbal teas to, help take those mindful moments before you have to, call a doctor to get a report on bad news. And so it's a mix of physical tips, emotional tips, and sort of overall practical tips to help care for yourself. So again, that you can, show up for others the way you want to.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you, Annie. Thank you so much for being here. We are grateful to be connected, and we will have all these links for our listeners in our show notes. And y'all reach out to Annie, and thank you for that free resource. And we
Yeah.
really enjoyed our conversation today.
Oh, I
Thank
did
you so
too.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everyone for listening.
Yes, you're welcome.
Good stuff.
Hmm.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Anything you want to add on before we close out episode 170?
I don't think so. I love it where Annie left it. What about you?
Oh, it just took me back. I was, I don't know if you know, like I got trained in sound healing years ago. I don't practice it often. Made me realize that I need to. Oh, you can see in my
Yeah.
background one of my bowls,
Yeah.
my amethyst.
Yeah. We used
But
the bowl when we were over there doing the training, us ladies
that's
that summer.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. It just makes me realize, especially going through this last year and a half, that I need to pull my bowls out and be doing. I often tend to take care of other people before I take care of myself, so I need to pull those bowls out and be doing some of that.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Yes.
Really good reminder.
Yes.
All right, friend.
Okay.
Um, Such a good convo.
Yes.
Grateful. And
Yes.
closing out episode
Love it.
170.
Love it, guys. I hope that you got so much from Annie's expertise and her resources. Please check out everything that she has if you need support in the physical wellness, right? When we talk about connecting our mind, body, and spirit through the alchemy of acupuncture. And we will see you live at 5 next week. In the meantime, don't forget,
Be well.
be wise, and
Be whole.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.